Jake. Kari's voice barely groveled. What happened? Kari's hand touched her head in the sudden rush of pain. She laid back down, facing the trees and the sky. Well, Jake paused for a second. I know why your brother said not to drink much. What? Oh no, did I do something bad? Kari turned to Jake. I never remember what happens when I'm drunk. Only denial and a couple of other things. Jake continued putting things back in the basket. I deeply apologize. Kari bowed, looking up at Jake. Jake smiled and lightly laughed. There is nothing to worry about, Kari. I thought it was cute. Kari blushed at his unexpected response. Jake slowly realized what he had said and looked off to the side. His emotions felt like they betrayed him, noticing Kari's obvious shock. Jake fiddled with his thumbs. Speaking in a slightly quieter tone, he cleared his throat and tried to speak again. Well, he laughed nervously. This is quite the awkward tension. Kari gathered up her courage after a few seconds of silence. Do you really think so? As Jake hesitated to answer, he firmly looked at Kari in the eyes and answered, Absolutely. Kari's cheeks blushed even more, carefully listening to Jake's simple one-word answer. Jake held a straight face, making sure he'd shown how serious he was. Kari did not know how to feel about it. In her heart, she felt the same about Jake, but in her mind, she remembered what Jolin told her after the first day they met. Kari, Jake spoke again. Can I ask you something? Kari's attention was caught from zoning out. Of course. Jake mustered up his question. What do you think of me? Kari stared at him in little shock. Her tongue felt like it was caught in its tracks. She wanted to speak, but it was too unsure. Jake watched as her eyes slowly darkened, looking down at the ground. Kari? Jake mumbled under his breath. Kari shook her head and quickly came to her senses. To answer you, I do not know how to clearly describe it. Oh. Jake smiled in relief. Please, take your time if you must. I will always be here to wait for you. Kari's heart skipped a beat, clearly knowing he had said that from the heart. She nodded and smiled back, feeling reassured. Now then, shall we head out? Jake stood up, picking up the basket and cloth. To where? Kari asked. The town. There is said to be a carnival visiting for a few days. Jake held his hand out to Kari. It may be fun. Oh. Kari took his hand as she was lifted off the ground. Jake carried both baskets and cloth in one hand and held Kari's on the other. From that moment on, they spent the day together in cheerful and subtle scenes. Along with exploring some of the gardens, Jake brought Kari somewhere special for the end of their little adventure. Can I see now? Kari asked. Jake's hands covered her eyes. All right, you can now. Jake slowly lifted his hands. Kari finally saw what Jake took her to. It was a beautiful glowing arc with vines of all colors wrapped around the edges. In the center, there was what looked like a rainbow swirling portal. Kari was very surprised, yet she was amazed and looked all over, then back to Jake. Would you like to go inside? Jake held his hand up. Kari nodded and placed her hand in his, and they went inside. End of section 7.